guys, welcome to the second Q&A session for my Narrowboat life. The first one seemed to go really well, so I thought I'd do another one. I've got some more questions, so some of you have posted them in the community tab on my YouTube channel, so I'm going to answer some of these, and hopefully you will be satisfied with the answers. So let's see. Okay, let's see what's first. This is from Raymond5473. Do you get bored living on a boat? Good question. I mean, I suppose living on a boat is no different from living anywhere else. There are a lot of factors in whether you'd get bored or not. Like, you know, one person's exciting life is overstimulating for another person, and it depends on your temperament, I suppose. But maybe he's talking more about, like, kind of the fact that you are sometimes in the middle of nowhere when you're on a boat. I mean, at the moment, the place I'm moored at the moment is about half an hour walk from where I park my van, and so you do have a sense of isolation when you walk to it. And I usually have a boat neighbour, Rose, and we quite often chat, obviously, and stuff like that, and that helps you not feel alone. And there are other boaters on the other side of the river which I can go over and talk to, and there's quite a thriving community of boaters here, and we have a WhatsApp group. We all chat together and help each other out with problems, things like that, you know. So I'd say that helps to the sense of you feeling like you're not completely alone on your boat, because I actually live alone, so it would be easier, I guess, if I was literally in the middle of nowhere and didn't leave my boat ever and there was nobody else around. I guess I could imagine that some loneliness would creep in there, definitely, not being around people. So I don't know, I've kind of moved on to loneliness there and not necessarily being bored, but I guess sometimes those two things can go hand in hand. In terms of actual keeping yourself busy, which could be another way of looking at it, I do keep myself busy a lot on the boat, and I, you know, there's always something to do, like, you know, chop wood, or, you know, go and get some water or something like that, or just basically check all of your resources, or sometimes like tinker with the boat, you know, like kind of, it is your home after all, you know, you still decorate it and things like that, and obviously I tend to work from the boat as well, so that keeps me from getting bored too. And he's got two questions here. The second one is, what do you miss the most about living in a house? That's a really good question, because I think there are always, you'd be a liar as a boater if you said there weren't moments when there were things that you missed about being in a house. So like, and a lot of them are to do with convenience, I'd say, like kind of if it's absolutely raining outside really hard and you basically have to go and like do something like cut wood or something like that because you have run out of wood, then they're the times when you miss just being able to turn the heating up, you know. And there are times like when you're dealing with the toilet and things like that, where sometimes, you know, if you're not in a great mood and you really haven't got, like, you can't be asked basically to do it, then you kind of, like, there are times when you miss maybe having a flushing toilet and things like that. And, you know, I do quite a bit of cooking on the stove, so I have to plan things. I guess there's more thought that goes into a lot of aspects of things, but you get into the rhythm of that and you get used to that, and so I guess you stop missing them as much. But then when I do go and visit somebody's house and I go and flush the toilet, I'm like, wow. Or they go, are you cold? And I'm like, well, yeah. And then they kind of turn the heating up and you get warmer, and I'm like, wow, oh yeah. So you kind of forget in a way, I guess. So I hope that answers your question. Right, next one. Where was you? This is from, Rich Colgate 8929. Where were you living before you moved on your boat? I was living in a flat, and that was just pretty standard flat that I rented, like every flat, you know, that people rent. Yeah, and all those conveniences that I just talked about, obviously I had all those in the flat, but I actually kind of didn't just move from the flat into my boat, or not exactly as I am at the moment. I moved from the flat, and I then had my boat initially in a marina when I was fitting it out, and in a marina you have a lot more facilities, like there is usually a shower block and something like that, and some of them even have like washing machines and things like that, and you definitely have lots of mains electricity there. And so that was really useful when I was fitting my boat out, because I was able to kind of sort of bridge the gap between the comforts of living in a flat and living out on the river or on the canal, which can be a very different experience. I was sort of a halfway house was when I was living on it briefly. Well, I say briefly, it was in there for like 2 years, but I wasn't living on it constantly. I kind of, it was only towards the end I was constantly living on it. And that was a good halfway house. It kind of got me used to just being in the boat environment, but I had some of the creature comforts of home before I went fully out onto the river and had to experience that. So that was good. That was good to have the in-between thing. So I hope that answers some of your question as well. And he's got 2 questions here. And what have you been doing work-wise? And he actually asked, do you get lonely? Obviously, I did kind of answer that earlier on. So sorry, Rich, if you sort of I actually answered it as part of the do I get bored question earlier on. So I hope that's okay. So what have I been doing work-wise? Well, my work is probably the thing that's changed the least, actually, because of the nature of my work. I'm a musician and I'm a sound engineer and I put on music, so everything I do is to do with music, and living on a boat doesn't really affect that, to be honest with you. All of the stuff, I go to rehearsals, I go to gigs still, I can do everything else work-wise on a laptop, which I can do on my boat. So I would say that, actually thinking about it, work has been the thing that's changed the least since I've moved on to a narrowboat. And I guess I'm lucky because of the type of work I do. I'm sure people that have different jobs, it may affect them differently, but for me it's been quite good, really. It hasn't affected it at all. Okay, hope that answers your question, Rich. Right, okay, what have we got here? Okay, this is from Shunia. I hope I pronounced that right. I've been wondering how you feel health-wise living in a steel tube. I built my house out of adobe and wood, and I've lived in nature this way for 15 years. I'm thinking of coming back to Blighty, and I'm considering buying a narrowboat to live on, but I'm not sure how I feel living within a steel boat. I imagine you're outside a lot. Interesting. I mean, yes, the boat is made out of steel, and that is metal, and that obviously affects certain things like the way metal conducts heat. So when your boat gets cold, it gets very cold. Like I'd say, if I haven't been on the boat for 3 days, if I've been away on tour or something, and I come back, it's got very cold. And it takes a while for the boat to heat up because the metal is actually warming up. Now, by the same token, in the summer, when the sun is constantly on it, it means that that metal warms up. And also I have a black boat, which tends to attract the sun a little bit more, and so it can get warm. But luckily for me, my boat is really well insulated, and insulation obviously goes both ways. So not only does it keep the heat in, but it also keeps the heat out. So actually, you'd be surprised, even when it's really, really, really hot, it's always slightly cooler on my boat. So that's quite interesting, and maybe something people don't realise. But in terms of the whole thing about it being made out of metal and health-wise, I mean, yes, the outside of the boat is metal, but all of my decor inside is wood. Everything is made of wood inside, and it feels like a cottage. Or maybe even a wooden shed or a shack or something. It kind of doesn't necessarily feel like I'm living in a metal box. In fact, I forget until I go outside that it is actually made out of metal, because everything I see inside is wood. So, and I love wood, and wood, you know, it has a feel about it, and with the fire on and stuff like that, I love it. It's got a definite vibe. I don't ever feel like that living in a steel box or tube, as she put it, would actually, it doesn't feel like it's affecting my health in any way, or whether that be mental health or physical health. Because I mean, at the end of the day as well, don't forget that I also get to just look out of a porthole and see nature literally just there, and you know, that never stops being impressive. It doesn't. Every time I think I've got used to it, I'll open the windows one morning and there'll be a beautiful sunrise, and I'll be like, yeah, I still love it, you know. Or there'll be a beautiful sunset and I'll be like, wow, you know, I never get bored of seeing that ever. So I think that's really good for your mental health. Okay, I think I had one last question possibly. Let me have a look. Oh yeah, this is from Michael Lalani. Sorry if I didn't pronounce that right. slight aggressive tone to this. Steel, heavy steel. Why not build these coffins out of aluminium? Thanks for your question, Michael. Yes, they are built out of steel. It's actually called mild steel, and I'm not sure I like the way you call it a coffin. A bit worrying, but they do build them out of aluminium. It turns out, I actually did a bit of research, and you can build narrowboats out of aluminium, and there are apparently narrowboats out there that are built out of aluminium, or aluminum for the American people watching. Your question seems a bit null and void, because they do build them out of aluminium. Mine just happened to be built out of steel. When I went to the narrowboat builders, they didn't really give me an option of, do you want it steel or do you want it aluminium? I just said I wanted a narrowboat, and they built it out of steel. I guess you would probably have to ask for that. I don't know how it affects it cost-wise. I guess it probably will affect it in terms of corrosion. So obviously steel will eventually rust, and especially because you're sitting in water, and I'm guessing aluminium probably doesn't. Structurally, I guess if the aluminium's thick enough, it will be strong enough. You always tend to think of aluminium in thin ways, don't you? So you don't necessarily think of aluminium as being a strong thing, but I guess it's probably all to do with the thickness and stuff like that. I would say, Michael, maybe Google it, mate, and check out some of the narrowboats made out of aluminium out there. They're interesting. Mine just happened to not be built out of that material, and as long as you take care of steel, it will take care of you, and I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with having a boat built out of steel. I'm sure lots of people swear by it. It's a very strong material. You know, the thing when you're on your boat, you always do feel like it's a very sturdy thing to be on, and even when you have bumps and scrapes into like locks and things like that, it takes quite a lot to dent a narrowboat. It's much more worrying, like if you're around boats that have plastic hulls and that. Actually, you get a bit nervous in the lock, because that if they bump into you, then you'll probably be fine. You'll have a little scratch on the side or whatever. But if you bump into them, metal going into plastic, you crush their hull, and you could sink their boat. So whenever I go into locks, I'm always very conscious of that, and I'm always very much like, I'm going to go in first to the lock, because then if you come in second and you bump into me, it's fine. But if you go in first and I come in, something goes wrong and I bump into you, then I don't want to sink you in the middle of a lock. So that's something worth considering, and I guess that would probably be the same with aluminium. So there you go. Okay, so that's all the questions answered. Hopefully I managed to catch all the questions on social media and all that you guys asked. If I didn't, let me know in the comments below. If you have any more questions, please post them in the comments below. I'm quite enjoying doing these Q&As. If you want me to go any more in depth with things, I'm obviously just talking from my personal experience. That's all I can ever do. I'm no expert in any of these things. I'm just somebody that lives on a narrowboat that wants to share my experiences with you all, and I hope you're enjoying that. If you haven't already, please like this video and subscribe. I know YouTubers always say that, but I'm just starting to learn that kind of stuff, the reason they always say it is because it actually helps the channel grow. Something like 85% of the people that are watching my videos aren't subscribed to it, and that subscription does help the channel grow, because when you reach a certain amount of people subscribe to you, then YouTube lets you do certain things, so that will all help. So keep spreading the word, and thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.